Welcome to this tutorial on how to set yourself up for your very first editing project that you shot on your cell phone. So we have Finder open. If you click Finder, this gives you the window in the Mac operating system that's kind of like Windows Explorer, where you can find all your files and folders. We're also in the Lacie Drive here, so you got to make sure that your Lacie Drive is connected to your machine and turned on. If the blue light is on, it's the gray box underneath your machine. It should be on. If you're not seeing it over here, you can turn the drive off and on again once you've confirmed that the USB cable is plugged in on the machine. If you have any questions, just ask. So what we're going to do is on the Lacie drive, I want you to make a folder. So if you look on most of these Lacie drives, it has first name, last name, all caps, and then date. So the year. So you're going to make a folder for the year on that specific machine. Now I want to note that this is a local drive, meaning this drive is not a networked drive. You can't get to it from every machine. So when you sit at a new machine, if you're changing machines at different projects, then you need to make a new folder. So this is something that you'll do every time you switch computers. So on this Lacie drive, we're making, it's going to be actually two things, and you're seeing the file management here. So here is Blake's library. Notice the icon is purple. That's a Final Cut Pro thing. And here is his folder. That's a Mac operating system thing. So we have a folder that's all caps, first name, last name. So anytime we're making folders, we do it a very specific way so that it's very easy to identify and there's no like untitled files. So it's called file management. We use a very specific system for naming all of our files and folders. If it is a root level folder on the Lacie drive, and you only make it once, I have you all cap. Everything else has something like this. So we use alphanumerics to sort in the Finder, so you can sort by A through Z, or numerically 1 through 10. And it's actually even better than this if you use zeros like on the dates, and maybe even start with the year. So a better way to name this would probably be, I'm going to just swap this out. So it would be 2015-06-10. So I'm renaming this date here so that the alphanumeric sort will be the most accurate it can be. And then also something that I want to make note here is that there's no spaces in between our letters here. Spaces turn into %20s when you do things on the internet, like if you're coding a website, or sometimes when we're transferring files up to our server and down from our server to the other video machine. So anytime we're naming files, no spaces, no slashes. So this is a slash. Slashes are subfolder modifiers in computer programming language. So it's actually saying, look in a folder called 2015-6-10, and then a subfolder within that folder, like these guys over here, would be called Meyerson 10 edit. So don't use those. You can use underscores, that's that, or dashes. And then when I separate words, I capitalize them. So this is my favorite file naming method, file and folder naming method. So that's file management in a nutshell. If you can do that for every single one of your files forever and ever and ever, you'll never lose anything. So untitled files tend to get lost. If you don't know where you're putting files, they tend to get lost. So this is something that's a skill that if you master it now, you'll probably thank me later, and you'll never lose anything, and you'll never waste time looking for files. So back to how we're naming. The very first thing is you'll make a folder. So I think we're on Royce's machine here. Royce already made his folder, but if you need to make a folder, it's here, new folder under the sprocket. It's also file, new folder, and if you look here, it is Command Shift key and the letter N, and that'll make a new folder, Command Shift N. So we get this new folder, and I put it somewhere that I had selected within Royce's folder. So if you ever do that and you want to rename something, single click a second time, and now we can rename it. I'm going to escape that. I don't need this, so I can control click. Control clicking on the Mac operating system is kind of like right clicking. You could also set up in your mouse preferences if you want that to happen as right clicking. You go to your mouse, and then you go to instead of being a primary button on the right hand side, make it a secondary button, and then you can right click things, and now you'll get the sub menu. So we're going to actually move this to trash because it doesn't need to be there. All right, so Royce has made his folder. So a folder is where you're going to be putting files. He also already downloaded from Google Drive, so we're going to have you upload to your drive. You make a folder on your drive, and then you can upload all the files from your phone. So he's already got this going on. The easiest way to download everything all at once is to download the whole folder. So you're going to click this little down arrow. You're going to, at that point, click the download. Over here, it's going to say zipping, and then it's going to download. So if I just show you what that looks like, it's going to zip the file, and then it's going to download it. So the downloads will go into your downloads. So if you're in Finder, you'll see downloads over here. So we have a zip file here that has been downloaded and then copied and pasted over to the. You can select the zip file, and you can right-click it and copy it, or control-click it and copy it, or Command and the C key will copy it. And you note the edit thing, when I do that, it'll kind of flash here. Edit copy is what it's doing, Command C. You guys got to go. I'm going to continue this tutorial. It'll be in the classroom for tomorrow. See you guys. Can you just close that door on the way out so that I don't hear the announcements? Have a great day, guys.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so at this point we have the zip file copied, and we're going to go over to Lacie Drive, and then we would put it into our folder that we made in step 1. So I'm just going to do it. I know that Royce already did this, but I'm going to do it for the sake of the video. So here's Royce's folder. If I drag this out, you can see it. Note that we're in the paned view here. So we're seeing things in like 1, 2, 3 different panes. I like the list view. This is like my favorite view. So if I click Lacie Drive, list view, now I can kind of see the folder names. I can see date modified. If I click date modified, it'll sort so that the most modified thing was at the top. To sort that way, like Z to 1. But I'm going to go back to date modified. Here's this folder, and I'm going to paste in there, Command V. So now we're pasting in this zip file that I copied off of the downloads, which is also found over here in the left-hand window in Finder. And then if you double-click this file, a zip file is like a compressed one file thing. It's going to archive utility comes up and it's unzipping the file. So it'll turn it into a folder at that point, and then you'll be able to see the video files within. Okay, so now we'll see the folder, and then this looks like what you see in Google. If I was to, don't remind me, close this and a list view. So this is going to look very similar to this, so these are identical. Okay, now we have all the files here. Spacebar is a quick preview, so if I hit the spacebar, I can watch these video files, and down arrow while I'm previewing, I can go through and quickly like cruise through the footage if I wanted to that way. And we're going to bring this into Final Cut Pro at this point. So the very next step is to open Final Cut Pro. It's not in our docs, so you'll want to go over to Applications. I'm going to go to List View, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to go to Final Cut Pro, which is the Fs. There it is. So I can double click it here, but I'm going to drag it down into my dock so it's there. Anytime you want to bring applications down, like you might want to bring the Adobe stuff, like After Effects, I got to click the down arrow. Here's the 2019. So Royce, if you want to use After Effects, now that's in your dock. We also use Photoshop in here a lot, and Premiere. So here's Photoshop. Maybe drag that down, and maybe Premiere. I'll drag that down. Maybe I'll even drag Motion down because that's pretty awesome. Motion's very similar to After Effects. It's Final Cut's version of After Effects. Motion, where is that? Here it is, Motion, After Effects, right next to each other. So we got Premiere and Final Cut next to each other, After Effects and Motion, and then Photoshop's kind of its own thing. So, all right, we're going to launch Final Cut. And on its very first time, you might get a bunch of windows that pop up. Just thinking about it. So you get this kind of thing going on, so it's kind of setting up Final Cut Pro for you. We can say OK to that, and we can say continue. All right, so by default, Final Cut Pro starts with an Untitled Library on the Mac hard drive. So that's the machine's hard drive, and we want to keep those very clean. It probably has a huge hard drive in it, but you want to keep it. You want to keep all of your video files and libraries on the Lacie drives underneath the machine, and keep the system drive perfectly clean. If you put video files on the Mac hard drive, sometimes these machines get completely wiped out and rebooted. So you don't want to do that, so that you don't lose video files. So we're going to get rid of this library in a second. We're going to make a library first. So a library in Final Cut Pro is like the main folder where all of your video files and project files are stored. So your media, pictures, video, and audio, and your projects are stored there. So I'm going to actually get rid of this by making a new library. So every time you start on a new computer, you make a library. Now, library is kind of like the root folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to name it the same thing as the folder that we just made. So I'll go here and I'm going to grab the folder name. If it allows me to, it doesn't. So I'll just jump out here, and here, and here, and I'll single click, and now I'm editing the text. I'm going to copy that text, and then I'm going to go here and I'm going to name my library the exact same thing. So I'm going to have a folder where I have video files, and I'm going to have a library that's only accessible by Final Cut Pro. So it's the whole year worth of work, and then within the library you'll have subfolders, and they're called events in Final Cut Pro. They start with the date, and then you tack on whatever you're editing. So man on the street interview. So I'm going to save this. All right, so now I have two different libraries open. One is Mac hard drive, the other one is on the Lacie drive. I'm going to close this library so you don't get confused and have files on the Mac hard drive. So we say File, Close Library. That's gone. All right, so we already have an event. If you want to make a new event, file new event, and it'll come up and it's saying, what do you want to name this thing? So I'm actually going to name it. It adds a 1 because there's already an event called that same file name. But I'll tack in MOS, Man on the Street, Interviews. And I will also create a new project. And it's going to say set based on first video clip that we import. It'll set the timeline up for you. So if you don't create a new project, you can click New Project here. You can say File, New Project when you are in the event, and it'll make a new project in the event window. So it'll create a new project, and it'll be untitled. I'm actually going to copy this and name my project the same thing. So I like to copy the names, so I don't type things over and over again. By default, Final Cut Pro, for whatever reason, the very first time you start a project, it comes up as untitled. I'm going to single click in there, and I'm going to paste in my project name that's exactly named the same thing as the event. So we have a library, we have an event within the library. So notice the icon, events have this kind of like block star. Up here we have a bunch of block stars. So that's just the icon kind of showing you, what it is. And then within the event, you can store project files and then also media. I'm going to get rid of this event because there's nothing in it. So I can right click or control click it, and I can move to trash, and that's a command delete if you ever want to do something with a key command. So command delete will move it to the trash. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I do. Now it's in my trash can. All right, so now I'm all set up, and at this point we want to bring video files in to begin the editing. So File, and I'm going to then import. So anytime you're bringing in media, it's called importing, and Command I will do that for you. So just hit the Command and the I key. You hold Command and hit the I key. And now it's looking, so where are these files? So we put them in the Lacie drive, and I'm going to sort by the content created date. And I'll go into my folder, double click, and here's the Man on the Street folder, and here's all the files. So if you're importing a file that you've already put on the Lacie drive, so how we just did it from Google Drive down, it already exists on the drive. So we can leave files in place at this point. Now when you are importing a file from your SD card that you plug into the back of the machine, you want to keep copy to library checked off, and I don't think you can say leave the files in place. I think it just grays this out, and that's the only available option. So copy to library puts it in your Lacie drive, in your library, in your event folder, and you have all the media that pops in here. So when you when you're copying to library, it automatically copies it from your card on Lacie Drive. When you leave files in place, it doesn't make a second copy of it. So if I had this checked off, it would put more files on, and it's, I don't know, maybe a gig or two worth of video files. So we want to keep the drives as clean as possible. That's why I'm leaving this. And I don't really need to cover all of this. Most of this stuff we can do, the analyze and fix stuff inside. Transcoding, creating optimized media makes a better file type, and creating proxy media makes a smaller file type. We rarely use that unless it's a huge project with 4K video. So yeah, at this point we're just going to say go ahead and import. And you have to pay attention up here and make sure that everything is importing. And actually I only imported one video, so that's good that I messed that up. But we could see that this video file was, does it tell me any info? It's telling me it was an H.264 file, it was mono audio. Does it tell me the file size? Yes, 1920 by 1080 with 30 frames per second. All right, cool. So this is an HD video, and we only got one, so I'm going to get the rest of them. I'm going to Command I, bring up the import window again. And it looks like I got 47, so I'm going to grab here. And what we can do is, if you hold the Shift key, it'll select multiple files in a row. If I hold the Command key, it'll select independent files. You can also deselect independent files. If I hit Command A, it'll select all, and I already have 47, so I'm going to hit the Command key and not select that one, and I'm going to import all of the selected files. So here's all my video files coming into the timeline. And now I'm ready to go. So my video, my project is set up. And a project is just a sequence of edited video and audio. You can have multiple projects. So if I said file, new project here, we may want to call one, I don't know, 9/23/19 bloopers. We may want to have another one for the morning show. We may want to have another one for the web page. So you can have multiple project files within the same event, referencing the same media, just edited different ways. So I'm not going to be on the bloopers timeline. I'm going to click this one, double click this one, sorry, and now I'm on the interviews timeline, and that's what I want to do. This is the one I'm going to arrange for class project. Okay, so editing. If I wanted to bring this file down, I can select it, and then this little hand, I can grab it and throw it down to the master timeline. Now the other way to do that is, once it's selected, I can hit the append key, so that's E, which means end. It puts it on the end. So once you like put a file down, E, and I hit another one, E, see how it puts it on the end, E. So I'm just like throwing these down to the timeline that way. I'm going to undo, undo, undo. The other thing you may want to do is, well, let's do this. So E is on the timeline, and then wherever my time bar is, if I wanted to insert it, I can hit the W key. So the QWE keys, if you look at your keyboard, they're like the top left corner. W will put it in the middle wherever my time bar was. So put the time bar and W. I wonder if it works where I'm hover scrubbing. W, yes, wherever I'm hover scrubbing, wherever this is, it'll put it right in the middle of all that. So see the red line is kind of, I'm just scrubbing back and forth. That's turned on because I have this skimming. I call it hover scrubbing. Audio and video skimming. Right now it's audio skimming is on. Snapping is something you want to turn on. N key turns that on and off. Snapping makes it so that things link, like lock up. So if I wanted to move this over, see how it's kind of like locking in place. I like to keep that on, or else things go off like a frame or two, and then it's you start to lose track of stuff. All right, so we'll cover all this stuff over here later, but you know, I think we're kind of set up now for editing. I'm actually going to select all this and delete it. Then Q is like on top, or connect to primary storyline. So if I put this down on the timeline and hit the E key, now it's on my storyline. So the primary storyline. Now if I wanted to put it on top, I'm going to select this clip and I'm going to hit the Q key and see how I put it wherever my time bar is on top. If you wanted to drag, you could do the same thing by dragging it and layering it up like this. See how there's like see how snapping is turned on, so it like locks where that yellow line is. If I wanted to put it like here, now it's like connected to. So this clip will be playing, and then it'll cut away, to these two clips if I wanted to like trim this. I'm having a problem here. It's like jumpy because snapping is turned on, and because I'm so zoomed out. Zooming, Command plus zooms in, Command minus zooms out. So it's going to zoom wherever your time bar is. So if I hover scrub, if I Command plus a bunch, it'll, wherever my time bar is, it'll zoom there. Shift Z is a global zoom. So that I'll go from the top of the timeline to the end of the timeline of whatever clips you have on the timeline. I'm actually going to trim this back. So I'll click and I'll drag this back to here. And now it'll fall down. I might pull the audio down and pull the audio down, and I might trim this back too if I click and drag it back like that. Another quick way to trim, let me see, if I select this clip and I hover scrub and I want to hit the end point of that, I can hold Option and then the bracket keys above the return key on the right hand side of the keyboard, out bracket. So that's like kind of like the, there's like a squiggly bracket and then like a square bracket. Out bracketing and then in bracketing. If I hover scrub in bracket, so that's the left bracket and right bracket keys, they kind of like trim down if I wanted to do it with a key command rather than clickety clicking, which makes you a faster editor. So we've covered cue, so if you want to have video playing and cut away to other video while the audio is still playing, and we got this clip again, and then we come back to this clip. Cue key will make it an attached clip to the primary clip. And then that's kind of how you'll be editing. You can grab things and pull them down to the timeline. You can trim so that we're at the very front of the interview and look maybe for the very tail of the interview. Shift Z is a global zoom, and I say, all right, that's kind of the end, and you kind of throw them to the timeline by dragging or hitting the E key and just slamming things down to the timeline. You know, it's a lot faster. I'm just clicking and E keying. Shift Z is a global zoom, and now I kind of have everything on the timeline. And then you'll trim it out to make it condensed, and ultimately we want it to be under 2 minutes. So we have like a minute worth of video on the timeline right now. Wow, do we have exactly 1 minute? That's crazy. On the timeline, and then if you wanted to get, and I'm not seeing my network drive. Let's go here. Maybe Royce didn't log in. So if I hide Final Cut Pro, nope, he didn't. If I'm in Finder, Command K brings this window up. I don't know if it's mapped when you guys log in, but to map it, it's mb:10.121.10.8 and then connect. And because Royce logged into this computer, it should pop this window up, and we're going to say connect. And we're going to make sure that the TV Tech drive is connected, scrolling all the way to the bottom, TV Tech, okay. And you'll see that over here at that point. There it is. So there's our network drive. Let's see if it's in Final Cut now. Yes. So if I sort by name, so IB audio, if I double click in there, and then you can find music and then preview it. So this is the duration. Oh, this is a long one. Let's say this was the right feel for what we were trying to accomplish. It's 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I could import that track. Oop, I want to double check something. Command I. This is a problem. We don't want to leave files in place if you're copying it from the TV Tech drive. So I'm glad I caught that. You want to make sure copy the library is happening so that it is copying it from the server, which is somewhere, it might not even be in our school building, and the data is coming to us through the blue cables that are behind your computer, the data lines. We want to make sure that that's copied through the data lines to your Lacie drive in your library. So it'll go into your library and make sure that the file's there. So I'm going to import that now, and if I look here, it's importing media and also copy. So that actually happened pretty fast. I'm going to do this. Command delete. Make sure I move it to trash and then try it again. Command I, and then select this guy again. Copy to libraries, checked off, import selected. Oh wow, that happens so fast. So if I go here, just want to double check and make sure it's on my library. Lacie Drive. We're going to go to Royce's library. I'm not seeing it. We'll sort by name. I put it in here. I actually want to put this in here. So Lacie Drive, there we go. So we want there to be a library at the root of the Lacie Drive and a folder to also be at the root of the Lacie Drive, both named the same thing. And then if I want to look in this, I have to hold the control key and click, and then I want to show package contents. So it's actually a folder, but it's got a lot of other programming things for Final Cut Pro. But if I want to see inside of that folder, I go show package contents. So we have now we have folders inside there. So we're going to look in here, and we're going to look in the original media folder. And look, that's where the file has been copied from our server into the Lacie Drive, so we know we're not working across the network to a file. So there's that file, and if we wanted to bring that to the timeline, we can drag it down underneath. And now we have audio and video playing at the same time. I might pull this down because it's so loud. I can also go over here and change that same line here. So you may want to type it in like -15. Okay, and now I can.
What's the dumbest thing you've seen a freshman do?
I've seen a freshman poop their pants.
And all that. So, did he say poop your pants?
I've seen a freshman poop their pants.
What? I don't know about that. That seems like it's a little outlandish and probably not acceptable for the morning show. But I think that's how we're going to end our video today. So Shift C, that's that global view, so I can see all the way to the tail of the timeline, all the way to the top of the timeline. And this, I'm hearing audio scrubbing. Some people find that annoying, so if you want to turn that off, you can go turn off audio skimming and leave on video skimming. That's probably how I usually set my timeline, and then spacebar. So spacebar stops and starts.
What's the dumbest thing you've seen a freshman do?
And then, now we got that going on. And then all the way at the end of the project, you're going to export. So let's say this is an edited timeline. We got it all set up. Maybe we want to fade out the music. So this little, see the little icon there and how my tooltip changes? I want to fade out the music at the end. So it fades out. Maybe I want to fade the video out. So if I go over here, I can go and I can grab a cross dissolve. Should fade to black. Let's try that. Yes, it's fading to black. Another way to do that same thing is if you control click or right click and show video animation. So that's control clicking. That's that little icon. Hold control and hit the V key. So we'll bring that up. And layer opacity is another way to do it. And grab the handle, and now you have two handles that you're working with. So you do the same thing as we're doing with our audio handle.
Twice.
At the same time. So let's say this is a final edit, and we're good with how it's arranged in the timeline. The music was actually still a little loud. Maybe it's like that, and drop that down to like -20. Still probably too loud. You might have to bring that down. We're going to just scrub, and the whole video's there. Everything's looking good. We want to change our video codec to H.264. This is a smaller file type. So see how we're at a gig right now? And now if I go here, it's way less than a gig. It's like 1/10 of a gig. So smaller file. We can get rid of include chapter markers. I honestly don't know what that does. And QuickTime, it'll open in QuickTime when you're done. So I'm actually going to turn that off and say do nothing. So at this point I can say next, and it's going to say where do you want to put it? We have our folder. So on the Lacie Drive, in Royce's folder, I'm going to go add to my list view. I'm going to sort by date modified, makes things a little easier to find since I just edited this not too long ago. I'm going to put it in here. And by default, it's named whatever your project is named. So you maybe want to tack on, final, edit, something like that. And then we can save it. So you got to look here, and it is spitting out a file. Now, if you were to start editing, it'll stop doing that. So if I went back over here, it'll kind of like pause that. So you got to pay attention to what's going on up here sometimes. If it's importing files, you want to make sure that this is fully circle. You can edit, but if at the end of the period you pull your card out, you're going to have issues. So make sure this goes full circle before end of period when you import files. And then this is showing you, how long the file is taking to spit out. So we're exporting, and that file is going to get spit out into our folder, and there'll be a pop-up window over here that says, hey, it's done. And there's we can show where it is. It'll be in the Finder. So it shows us exactly where I put that file. So we have the zip file that we downloaded from our Google Drive using Chrome. For whatever reason, we're having an issue with Safari, so you might want to use Chrome. You might also want to put Chrome in your desktop. So back to that applications window that we had open and drag that down to your desktop, or I'm sorry, your dock, not your desktop. Google Chrome. We'll put that next to Safari, so it's always there. But here we have, click back. It's date modified. Inside this folder, we have the final edit that I just spit out. Spacebar preview.
What's the dumbest thing you've seen a freshman do?
I've seen a freshman.
And that's the edit. And we have that we did in our editing work. So this is a 1 minute segment with 118 megabytes, and then we can take that. We're going to put that on Google Classroom. So I wonder if Royce is still logged in over here. Does he have it anywhere? He's got his drive. I don't want to go poking around his drive too much, but let's see, classroom.google.com. Sorry, Royce, I'm just going to go into your TVB classroom and then the classwork, and then man on the street ideas for approval, man on the street interview. Let's see what happened here. We're going to submit it here. So how do you submit? You're going to view the assignment, and then you're going to add a file, and we're going to select file from your computer, and you're going to go into your Lacie Drive, and we're going to go to, again, list view. I don't like the panes view. I like the date modified thing, and then I go in here, and then that's the file that I want because that's the one that's the final edit. Choose it and upload it. So this will be very quick as long as you have that H.264 file. The other file type is much bigger and will take longer. That's why we use smaller file types. Now it's there, and I can say turn in. Turn in. So at that point, you would have it fully submitted to Google Classroom, and that's how we're going to wrap this project. Before you do any of the final uploading or exporting and uploading to Classroom, make sure you get this approved. Like things like this phrase here, I would say, yeah, we're probably going to cut that out and we're going to trim it down, and you might not be able to use certain interviews. It kind of depends on the content that you gathered out in the field, but that's in a nutshell how to get yourself fully set up, fully edited, with audio, exported, and up to the Classroom. One of the things that I didn't cover is audio mastering, so we might want to touch on that too. I have a separate tutorial for that, and I will run you through that as well if you have a question. So that's going to do it for this one. If you have any questions, be sure to stop the video, raise your hand, and I'll come on over and help you out.